All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We will go ahead and get started. This is the Project Facilitator Webinar. So everyone joining us today is an iEARN Project Facilitator ready to kick off another great year of iEARN projects. So let's jump right in. So here's a quick overview of what we will be going over today. We're going to talk a little bit about the new project book that came out, the project space and forum management, managing your participants and communication with them, project recruitment and sharing, and then share a few additional facilitator resources and support opportunities. As I go through, feel free to type any questions you have in the chat box, or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask them, it's a small enough group, you're welcome to do that. And then I will be recording this as well for you to go back to in the future and for those facilitators that could not make it in real time today. Great, so let's go ahead and get started. And I want to start with a celebration of the 2019-2020 project book is here and released and ready for the world to see. We are really excited to have 94 renewed projects that were projects last year that are continuing again, and 8 brand new iEARN projects that I'll share out in just a minute. So that makes 102 iEARN projects this year, which is fantastic. And then, as always, we do have our learning circles, which adds typically an additional 4 to 6 projects in the Collaboration Center. So we're really excited to start another great year of iEARN projects, share out some existing projects, as well as get people excited about some of the new ones. I did send out an email to all facilitators with a link to this project book. I do ask, if you haven't already, take a look through it and specifically look at your project description. And if for some reason we made some errors in whether it's the timeline or a typo or something like that, don't hesitate to send me a quick email to let me know. That is the beauty of having a digital copy of the project book, as we can make those edits fairly easily. Great, so we are really excited to have 8 brand new projects this year. And what's even more exciting is 5 of those 8 projects are in Spanish, which we're really excited to continue building out our options for our Spanish-speaking teachers and students. So I am looking forward to adding these 5 new Spanish projects to our project book and collection. And they're a huge variety. So we have a STEAM and engineering one called Tengo un Robot. That's all about robotics and engineering. We have an intergenerational cultural project called De la Mano de Mis Abuelos that is about connecting with your grandparents on activities. There is ABC Cultural, which is students create an ABC book, and each letter represents a different part of their culture. We have Ruta 34, which is a math project, solving math and problem solving. And then lastly, we have Nuestra Tierra, La Deforestación, which is all about deforestation and the environment. And so they really spread the whole gamut of subject areas. So I'm excited to welcome those new projects this year. And then we have 3 brand new projects in English. There is, and I don't think we have any of the facilitators of these projects on today. Correct me if I'm wrong, otherwise I'll have you come on and say a quick hello. But the International Dinner Party is a project where students paint or make some type of artwork that shows an aerial view of their dining setting, including a typical meal for them. And then they write about it. And they write about not only the food that's on the plate, but then they also write about where that food came from, who made that food, was it grown nearby, was it bought at a grocery store, was it bought at a farmer's market? And so they talk through some of where the food comes from and leading to issues related to food and access to food. And then they create these beautiful pieces of art. And the facilitator encourages classrooms then to print out multiple pieces of artwork so that they can create a full dining table of typical food from around the world. Then the second new project is the Parlor, and this is an interesting new one because it is using innovations in technology to create real life, or as close to real life, video conferencing as possible. So they're using basic video conferencing tools, but they set the webcams and video conferences up so that you feel like you're in the same room as the other person, rather than having just from like the chest or shoulders up like we see now, that you'll see the person in full form, like you're standing in front of them. And then the last new project is the digital storytelling for exchange. And this project works on teaching students the process of creating videos, both the technical side of it, but also the storytelling side of it, and how you create a story arc to convey your story and what you want to share with others. So those are our brand new projects for iEARN. So I encourage you to take a look at them in the project book and the collaboration center. And if you are working with students and would like to try one of them out, I encourage you to do so. And then the last thing related to the project book is that we will be having 2 virtual events to celebrate the project book release. We'll be having a project book release party, and it is going to be hosted next week and the following. There is a typo on this slide, and I apologize. The dates for this event are next Wednesday, September 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and then the following Tuesday, September 24th, not Thursday, at 9 a.m. And we do this every year, just in different formats. And this is an opportunity for iEARN educators across the network, or even those outside of iEARN that are interested in the organization, to learn about the new projects that we have this year and spotlight existing projects. So we encourage all facilitators to attend the event if you'd like to attend. And also, if you would like to have 3 or 5 minutes during the event to share about your particular project, we encourage you to do that as well. If you would like to share out your project at one of these events, all you need to do is send an email to projects@iEARN.org. Let us know you would like to present. If you are available for both of them or just one of them, let us know that, and then send us 2 PowerPoint slides that we can use for your presentation. And depending on how many facilitators we have speaking, it'll be about 3 to 5 minutes for you to quickly share about your project and how teachers can get started and the timeline, etc. So I encourage you to join that. I will send a follow-up email after this webinar with links to everything we talk about today, including RSVPing for these events. And the second one is actually happening during Global Collaboration Week. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it is connected to the Global Education Conference that happens in November. But Global Collaboration Week is to highlight different activities that are taking place around the world that showcase some form of global collaboration. So on their website, they list all these different opportunities for teachers and students to connect in global collaboration. So we will be having one of these project book release parties during that week. Okay, great. And I apologize because I'm a little sick, so I may need to mute myself to cough, so I'm not doing it in your ears. All right, so next we are going to jump into setting up your project space and forum management. And I know we have a different range of experiences and lengths of facilitators on here. So for some of you, this might be a review, some of you it might be new, but it's always great to look back at your project and see if there's new ways that you can set up the folders to make it more effective and easier for your participants to navigate and join the project. So to start off, there is one of the most important parts of your project space, aside from the forum itself, is the About Resources section. And this is where potential or interested teachers will go to find out more about your project in greater detail than just the summary that's in the project book. And so in this space is where you'll find the description, you'll find class activities, the schedule, timeline, facilitator names, etc. As a facilitator, you have the ability to edit almost all of this section. This section is built out when you first submit your project to iEARN, and we put all of the information in there for you. But then as a facilitator, you have the ability to edit this section at any time. And I encourage you to do so at least once a year at the start of the new cycle, to go back to it and check to see if everything's still up to date, if there's more resources you want to share, or more information that you want to share in there. So I'm going to jump over to the Collaboration Center so I can show you how to do this. And I'm actually using Phase login so that you can see what it looks like through a facilitator's viewpoint. So once you are in your project space, go into the book club. You all have access to a section called Manage Group, and only facilitators have access to this. And this is sort of the facilitator home base or headquarters where you can edit and manage your entire project. If you want to change the About Resources section of your project, that lives here in the Edit Group Details. So I am going to click on Edit Group Details, and this is where you can change your group summary. A note here, group summary should be very short because they're the ones that are listed just under your group name. You can adjust your group description, language, age level, subject area. Quick note on the subject area, this is what is used in the project search. So if a teacher is trying to find a project related to music and they click music and filter by music, this is what will put your project into those different subject filters. You can adjust the schedule and dates of your project. You can add possible classroom activities, expected outcomes, group contribution to others in the planet. This is where the SDGs are placed. Any additional curriculum areas. There's also an FAQ question section. So if you want to add frequently asked questions for your project, you can do so in this section. And then lastly, there is a section for related links and resources for your project, and an opportunity to attach any files. So if you have a curriculum guide or lesson plans or things like that, you can physically attach those files here. And then just update and save that, and it will update your About Resources section. The only thing in the About Resources section that you cannot edit as a facilitator is the list of who's facilitating. So facilitators here. So you would need to contact us to update if you have a new facilitator, if you want another one removed. And then the other thing, let me just double check. The other two things that you cannot edit as a facilitator is your project photo or logo. So you can reach out to that. And then lastly, there is something called a join description. And And that is what is sent out to participants when they join your project. So if that is not something that you set up at the beginning of your projects, typically we just put a generic welcome and then copy your summary in there. But if that's something you are interested in crafting and editing, and you want to have a customized and specific email that goes out to all participants when they click join for your project, that's something that we can help you set up and edit for you. All right, great. So that is the About Resources section. Next, we are going to move on to the forum activity organization. And again, if you have questions as we're going along, feel free to type them in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask them. Seeing such a big glare because it's so bright where I am this morning. I'm going to try to adjust that a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. Okay, great. So there are quite a few different ways that you can organize the forum space in your project. The default setup for all projects is just an open forum. There's no folders already created for you. It's just a forum where teachers and students can start adding their discussion posts. And we have many projects that keep it that way. Maybe they don't have a lot of activity, or they would like it to be just an open, free-flowing discussion, and that's okay. But if you also have, a project that has different activities that you would like students to do in a different order, or you have a high volume of teachers and participants in your project and you would like to direct them to different spaces, or you have a project where you like to group classrooms and students together and you want them to have their own space to connect, there are various ways that you can set up and organize your folders in your project. So next, I'm going to go through and give you examples of some of those different ways that you can set up your folders. So we have 4 main ways that projects currently organize their folders. There's chronological, so that is if you have project activities that happen in a certain order, like activity 1, 2, 3, 4. There are themes or topics, so some of our projects work off of different topic areas. There are some projects that have general discussion spaces, and I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. And then we also have some projects that group classrooms together and create folders for those groupings. So I just pulled a few examples of some of our existing projects so you can see what this might look like. And you might start to think, if this isn't something you already do in your project or you would like to change yours, you can start thinking if one of these ways makes sense for your project. So chronological, again, is when the classrooms, teachers, and students need to complete the activities in a certain order. It might not be that it's on a certain timeline or schedule, but that there's a starting point and then they move through in chronological order. So Water is Life is an example of that. They have activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, and that's where the students go to complete those different activities. Go Me on Earth is another good example of this. So they start with some general discussion spaces of school introductions, and they have a teacher's guide folder, but then they go through Go Me Part 1, Go Me Part 2, and then Part 3. And so they can follow those different parts and steps. Another way to organize folders is by theme or topic. So a good example of this is One Day in the Life. For those of you not familiar with that project, students take photographs, videos, make artwork that show their daily lives in their country. And so they set up their folders by different topic themes. So you can see 3 of them are showing there. They have your school day, school trips, and then cultural photo exchange. So they have theirs organized by topic and theme. And for these projects, it typically doesn't matter what order that the students completed in. A class could join next month and only post in the cultural photo exchange section, and that's okay. So they know where to go to post related to that theme. And then the example on the right is the Girl Rising project. And Mari and I worked this year to add some really cool photos to it. So you can see there, that's why it looks a little different. And I can show you later how you can do that in your project if you'd like to. You can change the little folder icon to a picture or image. But in the Girl Rising project, they also use theme and topic areas for discussion. So they have a different folder for every single one of the mini series and countries that they follow. And so that classrooms can go in and find the mini documentary that they watched and go into that folder for that discussion. Then we have some projects that have a simplified setup with general discussion spaces. So they might not have specific themes or activities, but they still have an organized way to direct teachers and students to different spaces. So you could have a folder that has a youth discussion space, a teacher discussion space, and then a final projects or outcomes folder. And this is something I would encourage many of you to think about. If you, in your project, you have some form of final product or project that students share out, to think about if it would be helpful to have a folder that's dedicated just for those final projects and outcomes, so that it's easier for the other classrooms to see, but then also easier if a new teacher is coming in and is interested in your project, they can go and see what the final projects were that other classrooms have shared out. And then lastly, another way to set up the folders is by groupings. And I will say this is really only a small subset of our projects, because it's really only for projects that do more structured pairing and grouping of students and teachers. So 2 examples here are Design Squad Global. We do this. We put them into 6 different groups. And so you can see here, the folders are just titled Group 1, 2, and 3, and the teachers' names are listed underneath it. This way, the teachers know exactly where to go, where their group is, to participate in that project. And then also the Teddy Bear Project does something similar, because in the Teddy Bear Project, they actually do one-to-one matching because they're sending physical packages to one another. And so they set their folders up with those pairs. So they have a new folder for each of the pairs to communicate in the forum. All right. And then just a few other things to consider when you are organizing your folders is, do you want to add some sort of folder that allows teachers to get partnerships and connections with one another? Do you have resources and guides that you like to share out with your teachers? Sometimes they can't find it in the About Resources section, but if you add a folder to your project that you can link and upload files and resources or links to outside resources. Some projects also use this as an opportunity for teachers in the project to share their own resources and guides with one another. And then, as I mentioned before, thinking about if you would like to add a folder for classrooms to share their final projects and outcomes. And then you can consider a mix of all of these. So you can see the example here for Global Trends for Francophone Africa. They have some of the youth general discussion spaces for youth and teachers, and then have also separated it by some theme areas. So those are just a few examples of how folders and projects can be organized. Again, it's really up to each facilitator and what you think makes the most sense for your projects and participants. There's not one way to do this. And just thinking through how you want your classrooms and teachers to engage in the forum and kind of putting yourself in their shoes as far as what would be the easiest to navigate. And for some people, that might be a lot of folder organization, because you have quite a few people in your project doing a lot of different things. And for some of you, it might be a more simplified folder organization. And so I do want to stop here for just a second and see if there's any questions, and then also give an opportunity for anyone who is on the call that has already organized their folders in a specific way, if you want to share a little bit about how you organize them and how it's worked for you.
Rachel, can I talk now? Yeah, thank you so much for organizing my girl writing folder. It looks wonderful, but I'm thinking, some students, they just post their introduction. They just ignore all the instruction, and sometimes they just add a new folder and start introducing themselves. Is it any way to kind of, get their comments moved to the proper folder?
Yeah, so that is actually something that I was planning on showing everybody later, but I can show you now. There is actually a way for you to close discussion spaces so that it sort of forces students to go into folders. So I can show you an example. Let me see if I actually think you can see it in the book club. Let me show you. So in the main space of your project, you have all your folders set up. And then at the very bottom, you still have an open discussion space. And some projects, this is great because they use this as sort of the general discussion space for introductions or questions or things like that. For other projects, this isn't necessary, and it also can be make things challenging because students and teachers start posting down here and they're not posting in the proper folders. So there actually is a way for us on the admin side, on the back end, to close this discussion space so that it forces them to go into a folder to participate. So I can show you an example. I'm pretty sure we do that for Design Squad. I'll show you what. Oh, Faye, I'm gonna have join the group for a second for you. I'll remove you later so you can see what it looks like. Great. So in the Design Squad projects, they have it separated by groups. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see there's no discussion space there. And that's because we've disabled that on the back end. So what it does is it does not allow them to misplace their discussion posts. So when they join the project, they have to go straight to their proper group to post. And then once they go into the group, and Design Squad has a unique folder setup because they actually have two of the formats we talked about. They first have them separated by group, and then in each of the group folders, they have it chronological in the different activities. And so once they get into the group, then the folders are set up by the different activities. Oh, and I notice here we have discussion there. So Nikki, if you want to remove that discussion, we could, if we don't want them posting there. But then it forces them to go into the folders. And once you get into a folder where you want the discussion to happen, then you leave that discussion space open for them to post. Is that helpful, Mari? Yeah. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, if you find that happens a lot in your project where students and teachers are posting in that main discussion space and you want the discussions to be in the correct folders, you can reach out to us and we'll close that initial discussion space for you. Great. Okay, so before we move on, to some other management tools. I do want to share my screen quickly and show you how to actually do this folder creation and management. So you've started to think about how you might want to organize or change your forum space, but to actually do that, you have the permissions and abilities as a facilitator to create new folders, to edit folders, to rearrange them, to make subfolders within a folder if you would like to do that. And so I will show you quickly how to do that. We do have a lot of facilitator tutorials that walk you through this. So if you need a refresher afterwards, you can access those. So I'm going to go back into the book club. I'm actually going to leave Design Squad Global before I forget. All right, I'll go back into the book club and back into that manage group section. So you have the edit group details where you can edit your about resources, and then you have the edit forum folders, and this is where you can manage all of the folders in your project. All right, so just a few quick tips and tricks for setting up your forum. Here are some things that you can do within the forum space in addition to the folder setup. So you can pin discussions to the top of a forum folder. You can make discussions read only. You can close entire discussion spaces. That's what we just talked about. And you can also add images instead of the folder icons. Those last two bullet points are things that we need to help you with. So if you want to close a discussion space or you would like to replace the folder icon with your own images or pictures, you would need to reach out to us to do that. But I will show you quickly how you can pin discussions to the top of a folder and also how you can make a discussion read only, because this is helpful in helping direct teachers and students in participating in your discussion space. So I have my folders all set up and ready to go. I have my discussion spaces ready. And now let's say I want to, at the top of each folder, to have a list of instructions and resources for the teachers and students that are going to participate in that folder. So when I go into that folder, I have the ability as a facilitator to pin a discussion to the top of this list. Because the way that our discussion forums work is the most recent discussions come to the top so that students and teachers can see who's been posting recently. And so at the beginning of your project, if you start a new post and welcome everyone and give them instructions, maybe Faye wants to give instructions on where to look for book recommendations or what to include in their book recommendations. If she just posts a new post and everybody starts participating, her post is going to sink down to the bottom. And so the best way to keep that post at the top is you simply make your post and then you have this gear icon. And as a facilitator, you see this, but nobody else sees this. You click on that gear icon and you can just hit pin. And then it'll ask you if you want to pin it here or pin it in here and recent discussions. Just click the one that's already clicked for you. So you're just gonna pin it here in this discussion, nowhere else, and click OK. And then it will update and it will pin that discussion to the top, which means it will stay there forever. So anytime, even in 6 months from now, and you have a full list of discussions, your instructions or your post will stay at the top there. If you would like to unpin it or you make a mistake, it's really easy for you to go back to pin and hit don't pin, and you can unpin it there. So that's a really easy trick, not even really just a trick, just a feature to keep your discussion posts at the top of the thread if you want to put instructions or any other important information. And then you can also mark something as read only. And what this does is it closes this discussion so that nobody can comment on it. And really, you would only do this if you wanted to post something for information, but you didn't want teachers and students to be having their discussion in that place. So for example, if you're posting instructions, you can pin it to the top, and then you can also mark it as read only. And that way, when teachers and students click into that discussion, they cannot comment, they can only read what that post is. So that's another way to help direct where teachers and students are posting and on what. And you can easily just reopen it the same way. Other things that you can do now that we're here as a facilitator, you can edit posts. Students and teachers cannot, but you as a facilitator can edit posts. You can also delete discussions entirely. So if you make a mistake or a student makes a mistake, or you know, in the rare case that somebody posts something inappropriate, you as a facilitator do have the ability to delete a discussion. The other thing you have the ability to do, which isn't used that often, is change the author. Things that I've used this for is if I'm helping set up a forum, but I want the author of the post to be the facilitator, not me, Rachel Manley, I've done it there. Or if you have a teacher maybe that's posting on behalf of a student, you could switch the author. It's not used very often, but it is a feature that you have control over. And it'll switch who made that post, essentially. Okay, so that is pinning discussions, making discussions read only, and then closing discussion spaces and folder images are something that you can request us to support you with. Any other questions on that? And I do want to make sure to note as we go along the things that you do need to request support for. So in addition to closing discussion spaces and the folder images, if you ever want to completely delete a folder, you need to request that from us. The main reason we do that is because once you delete a folder, all of the discussions in that folder go away. And so we don't want you to accidentally delete a folder and lose hundreds of discussions. So if you want to completely delete a folder, you'll need to put in a request for that. And then if you want to move discussion posts anywhere, that's something that you would have to put in a request to do. That is also something that we're trying to fix to have facilitators have the capability to do that. So with project management or participant management and communication, once you have your space all set up, you have instructions pinned to each folder, you have your folders set up and in the order that you would like them to be in, you can start to communicate out with your participants and manage who is in your project. So the third section of your manage group headquarters is your manage group members. So that's where you can go to see who is in your project. And so you'll have a list of all teachers and students that are in your project. And what you can do in this space, you can click on the teacher or student and see their profile and more information about them. You can issue a certificate at the end of the project. It will give them a notification that they've received a certificate. You can also remove people from a project. I think sometimes facilitators are hesitant to do that because they don't want to do it by mistake. But I will say that if you know for sure that a student or a teacher is no longer participating in your project, it's okay to remove them from it. It will help you organize and keep your lists up to date. We are looking into ways that we can automatically do this every year. We're considering, you know, is there a way that we can automatically remove everybody from a project at some point in the year and then they have to rejoin? Maybe that's something a facilitator can choose to have as a feature of their project if they would like to. It's something we're in the beginning phases of exploring, because I know some of our projects that have been around for 10 plus years have thousands of participants in it, and only a small percentage of them are actually participating in the project currently. So you do have the ability to remove teachers and students. And I know one thing that Faye did this year with the International Book Club is we removed all of the previous participants, and then she sent out a message to all of the participants before we removed them, actually, and said, we're starting a new year. We're going to remove you from the project. If you would like to do this project again this year, please rejoin, and we would love to have you continue the project. And then it allowed her to clear all of the previous participants that weren't currently active and have new people join. So that's something as a facilitator you have control over. And then you can also have a quick link to view their profile here. So here's where you can manage any of the participants that are in your project. Then the other ways that you can communicate with your participants, one great feature that's semi-new is the news function. So I want to show you this very quickly. So in your project space, you have the news feature. And the way that the news feature works now is it posts your news here, but it also gives you the option to email everybody the news posts. So this is a really great way to send out email communications to the participants in your project. So you go here and you add a new entry and you type your content, and then you see the checkbox here that says send email notification to group members. And so they'll get an email saying that you've sent out a news post. So this is a great way if you want to send out a welcome message at the beginning of your project, if you want to send out reminders to your project participants. And then they always still post here. So teachers and students can access the news posts within the project as well. Okay, and then I'm gonna jump to this one, email notifications. Just a reminder that you can set up your own email notifications. So if you go to your dashboard, you have the notification settings. And as a facilitator, you can get notifications when somebody comments on your discussion, when somebody puts a new discussion. This is what all teachers have access to, so they can set up their own email notifications. So you can be notified when somebody comments on your discussion, when somebody mentions you, etc. You can decide whether you want an email notification or just a pop-up in the Collaboration Center. But then as a facilitator, you can also turn on notifications for your project. So when you sign in, underneath here, you'll see the list of every single iEARN project, and you just need to find your project and click. You'll see these four is, do you want emails when somebody adds a discussion to your project? Do you want emails when somebody adds a comment to your project? And so you can go and find your project. So you can see Faye has all of these turned on. So anytime anybody posts in the International Book Club, she gets an email notification. Anytime anybody does a comment on somebody's post, she gets an email notification. So you can decide as a facilitator, if you don't already have this set up, to get those notifications.
Rachel?
Mm-hmm.
So is that something we can do for any project? Like, well, I like to follow up what's going on in the Spanish projects, even when I'm not participating. I first have to join the project and then go to this email notification?
Yep. And actually, as a facilitator, you have access to all of those projects in the notifications. And so you wouldn't even technically need to join the project first. You could just go here. You can see Faye hasn't joined all of these projects. It lists all of them here. Obviously, you're not going to want to turn on notifications for a million different projects because your inbox is going to be overwhelmed. But if there's a few other projects that you would like to follow, you can click the notifications for those projects. But I would say,
can you show me again how to find that? I think I missed the
just
beginning.
go to your dashboard. So when you sign in to the Collaboration Center and you're on this page, your normal dashboard, it's this yellow button on the top that says Notification Settings.
Okay.
And you just click on that and it'll take you to that. Yep. Great. Okay, I'm going to skip over those. We're going to share those out at another time. And then the last thing I wanted to share out is just some reminders. Most of you on the call are fairly experienced facilitators, so you probably use these or some of these already. So it's just a quick reminder of how you can recruit for your project and share your project out. You can always submit your project to our monthly international news flash. We are regularly looking for content and project spotlights for these emails, and they go out once a month and they go out to everybody in our international network. So if you want to spotlight your project to get more teachers participating in it, all you need to do is email newsflash@iEARN.org and let us know. If you want a particular short paragraph or content to include in it, or a particular photo, you can include that in the email as well. You can always utilize the Teachers Forum for recruitment. So posting to the Teachers Forum to let teachers know that your project has started and you're looking for participation. But I've also seen facilitators effectively use the Teachers Forum for looking for people who have posted who are looking for projects. So you might want to spend some time reading through the Teachers Forum, and maybe there's a teacher that's looking for a project like yours, and you can message them and invite them to join your project. Using the news post function in your project to communicate out with your participants. It's also a great way to engage if you have a lot of participants in your project that are not active. You have a whole long list of them in that manage group, but they're not participating currently. You can use that news function to re-engage them and send a message to everybody that's currently in your project to let them know that you're starting up again and invite them to join. And then lastly, you can present your project at some of our virtual events. So as I mentioned before, we have our project book release party in the next few weeks that we're inviting facilitators to present and share their project out at. You can join and present there. You can also participate in one of our virtual project exhibitions. So we kicked this off last spring in May and had a really successful virtual event. So we'll be hosting one again this December and then again in the spring. And so if you, as a facilitator or any of the teachers in your project want to share out their project work, first and foremost, this is a great way to celebrate and share out the great project work, but then it also serves as a way to get your project out there and get more people interested in joining your project. Any questions on that? Great, and Faye, I think, wrote a few pieces of advice in the chat box, which is helpful. For project recruitment, consider subject area professional organizations to recruit new members. So if your project is particular to, let's say, the International Book Club, you could target local librarian or library organizations. If your project is particular to environmental education, you can reach out to local or international environmental organizations to help recruit brand new members to iEARN, which is great too. Thanks for that, Faye. All right, so I'm just going to end on sharing a few resources and support so that you can continue to be successful in facilitating your iEARN project. A reminder to join the facilitators discussion group if you have not done so already. You can post in here to ask for advice, to share resources with other facilitators. We have our facilitator tutorials on our tutorials website. So this will walk you through how to organize your folders, how to pin and put read only for a discussion, things like that. We have the Project Facilitator Toolkit, which was helped created by some experienced facilitators a couple years ago. You can always request to utilize our Zoom video conference platform. So you can use that for coordination and collaboration between facilitators, and then you can also use it to engage your participants in your project. And then we are also going to start something new this year to continually support facilitators and engagement, is sending out really quick monthly emails to facilitators with tips and tricks and ideas for you to support your projects. So you'll see a few more email communications from us and the projects committee this year with some ideas for engaging your participants, maybe some tech tricks and tips as well. And then as a reminder, I put the emails there at the bottom. If you need any sort of project support, feel free to email projects@iEARN.org. We have a projects committee who is dedicated to reviewing brand new projects that come in and to supporting facilitators. And so that committee is there to help support facilitators in any way that they might need. And then if you need any specific tech support, so you're having trouble with the folder organization, if it's doing something funny, or you need something deleted, or you would like to add images for your folder icons, you can email technicalsupport@iEARN.org. And as always, you're welcome to email me directly for anything.